Right, let's do this then. So I've got the last point. My ugly point. I carefully kept this. In fact, I even low-key, because I'm just like this as a person, I low-key hoped, because Maui didn't know this was my point, that he would actually step into the trap and say all the things wrong earlier about G2. But actually, he was just mainly talking about the downtrend in Eco, and it was all perfectly fine. Because, dude, the criticism of G2 from that Katowice playoffs onwards, I think's really unfair. As in, people are acting like the real team just failed, or somehow this implies that like the project doesn't have the potential it does. Like, remember, guys, when the playoffs began in Katowice, they literally had Monacy already knew about this whole scenario going on in Ukraine. That was in the back of his mind. He's also a brand new player playing his first big LAN. They didn't have their coach because their coach had a positive test. They still almost won the motherfucking tournament, boys. Then, and that's with Nico not even playing well in the final. Then they come to EPL. They don't have their IGL last minute because he has to fucking go and pop as well. They get him back at the end when they're effectively eliminated if they don't win one key series, which was still a 3-map series. Like, look, I could definitely go on the mouse next side. I thought you made a very valid point there. If you want to go on the angle of like, look, on paper, yeah, if you just say you've got Nico, Monacy, Hunter, that really should be enough for that group to get through. I agree with that as a premise. But like, I feel like people are almost using the hot take to be like, I'm out on this team. It's like, how are you out on this team? Dude, this is the stock you buy right now. This is literally the number one team, if they can keep all these players, that has the most potential in CSGO as far as I can tell right now. They're already really good, but they have the potential for real to be number one in the whole world. And people are going to go like, I'm selling, I'm out on this. Like, you motherfuckers don't get it. This is like if Bitcoin went to 5k tomorrow, what, you wouldn't buy? The joke is you guys wouldn't. You'd all go, but it's going down now. And then when it went back up to 50, you'd all go, you know, I almost bought it. Like, you'd be that idiot, wouldn't you? So like, the joke is like, this is the most obvious double down team where you go, since this extenuating circumstances are so ridiculous. Like, essentially, it's only the online blast tournament they ever really played with the lineup properly for the whole tournament. So realistically, I agree, they should have made it through Pro League in theory. Some of that's on Nico. But aside from that, if I was G2, I wouldn't be panic stations at all, mate. As long as we get everyone back and everyone tests negative, this team's going to be amazing, I think.
They have, like, obviously, just on like the name sort of brand of it alone, just you look at the players, but some of the roles they fulfill, it's so ridiculous to me, like how much depth they actually have. And Monacy is like, it's just like the cherry on top when it comes to the AWPing, obviously. I think even players like, you know, Jax, who don't even have to fulfill this like massive fragging role, but he has this potential to play like just enough of like an off-brand kind of Counter-Strike in certain scenarios where he's like probably a little bit more aggressive than he needed to be. He'll take like an extra risk where maybe like you know the absolute by the book play would have been to like, you know, be a little bit more defensive, but he's got this like energy to him that just sometimes it just works out right, and he gets like the right multi-kill at the right time. Like I completely agree. I picked them on Twitter a while ago to win the next major because I like. Oh, you did?
That. Fair enough. Okay, yeah, that's a good pick though. That's a pretty good run to pick.
Yeah, because I felt like everyone was like real high on this fight.
Wait a minute, didn't you actually have? I think it was before Bit joined, but didn't you actually do a bit like Na'Vi would win that next major? So wait a minute, Anders actually, no joke, has nailed 2 major winners with only picking one team. He got Astralis for the first one, and then he picked this one here. That's pretty good. That's not bad. Because remember, even though a fan's going to go with me, you pick the favourite. First of all, questionable favourites at the time he's picking them. And then secondly, there's the entire field against him, for fuck's sake. I don't know if you guys know how betting works, but there's a lot of bets I'll take where you can have the favourite and I'll have the whole fucking field against you at 50-50 odds, thanks. Unless it's your Jason Mozo tool, in which case. Yeah. Still, I've always thought, I've always said that. In a way, you almost ruined my actual memory of the moment of Astralis winning that first major, Anders, because I wasn't truly taking it in, because I kept looking at Moses' face right next to me. Because if people don't know, like the premise goes at Ismail Stick. For that first E-League major, Anders did a bet right before Astralis got really good. That Astralis, I think even before they had Clave. He said that they would win the major, and he allowed Moses to have a bet with no odds. It was just if Astralis wins the major, Anders wins and gets to pie him. If any other team wins, then Moses wins the bet. And so when I saw VP was losing that like lead, and I was just looking, and it's like half of the enjoyment was just seeing Moses' face like gradually break down, and at the end it's like he almost had like his hand in his hand, like, and I almost remember just thinking like, this is almost better than the game. So yeah, that's pretty good though. Yeah, I think you got a decent chance on the G2 one.
hold on. So on the opposite side of that experience, right? Like I'm obviously casting that final, and I'm thinking in the back.
Oh
of my
yes,
mind,
of course. Yeah.
I can't see Jason's face because he's in the green room somewhere. And I remember that moment because obviously the way that they turned it around was they rushed like, on the T side with Tech Nines on Train. Like they rushed the yard and just won with Tech Nines, which obviously, if you know anything about like Train back then, how CT side it was, like,
mega hard,
impossible, like basically impossible. So good times, yeah. So I think there's an enormous amount of things that just have to work a slight bit better for G2 right now, and I think they could do it.
Right, someone make that video if they win the major, like the how when I'm G2 or whatever, it's going to be all the comments on Reddit, like this G2 team sucks, like fuck them, like EPL, like what about Katowice, is Alexi B good enough? And then it's like and then Sanders like they will win the major, and then the glory Alexi B lifting the trophy. Yeah, of course, that's already prepared. That's prepared. What are your thoughts,
one thing I want to say about G2 is that I think like one of the more common things I'll read is something like, oh, Monacy overrated, and it's like, are you kidding? Like, are you?
He's only played one LAN. No, I guess two. He's played 2 LANs ever.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Like, I think he's playing fantastic. He is playing much better than I thought he was going to play coming into this team so quickly. I mean, and the thing is, I even watched like all the freaking We Play leagues. Like I've seen everything he's done in those, and he's still bringing that level of firepower on a tier 1 level. It's insane. Like, sure, I'd say so. Maybe I would hold back on some of his decision making on maps he's not comfortable on, like Nuke, for example. Like he could still improve a little bit, but man, like I didn't think that his 3 maps that he's good at, Mirage, Dust 2, Vertigo, I thought maybe some of that skill transfers over. Maybe things were a little bit easier when we play because people weren't throwing as many flashbangs. But even against some of the best teams out there, he is lighting them up. Like when they took down VP on like early on Mirage, like 45 kills, like that's just mental. Like how can you do that in your first LAN arena game? And he dropped over 40 twice. I mean, sure, there's a lot of OTs, but sometimes these young players or whatever, think of Katie a handful of years ago, they would just break down. They wouldn't be able to hit all those shots, and yet he still keeps doing it. Like I think this kid is going to be, I think his next year is going to be a top 3 HLTV player. Like this guy is unbelievable, and I really think it's just a matter of time until they get it together, till the situations don't work against them. And seriously, like this team has everything they need to be incredible. And I even think their T side, until Alexi B got sick, from what I saw from Blast to Katowice with Alexi B calling, it was getting better. Their T sides were even getting better. They're like it wasn't a matter of like if, it was more a matter of when.
Okay. And by the way, I'll just throw this in there because I'm keeping everyone honest. The people who said, because that was another criticism, people were saying that like Alexi B didn't have enough stuff on the T side in Katowice. It's like it's his first LAN, for fuck's sake. You keep that same energy with Glaive for the last 2 years, boys. Let me know how was their T side doing on those LANs at the end of last year? Oh, non-existent. Even in the fucking Blast one where they all cheated and they made the top 3, it was just all CT sides. And you've got the GOAT IGL. Like people, again, you have to realize it takes time to implement a system. It takes time to get a 16-year-old Russian player to know how to play with. Come on, bros. These are some of the most extenuating circumstances you can make for someone. And people are acting like you're walking into an easy gig and you're supposed to just be 10 out of 10 on day 1. Like, people are expecting too much. I don't know why people... Have you noticed that, by the way, just as a sidebar? Because unfortunately, I think this ties back into the Alex thing. The one area that, it's ironic. When Anders, you said that fans always ask for things that, like, if you actually give them, I'm fairly sure they wouldn't reward you in the way they claim, and maybe they wouldn't even recognise that you were doing what they asked. One of the number one ways, and we always bemoan it on these podcasts, is they always pretend they want the most tactical, in-depth stuff, because they all on Reddit LARP that they're some, like, genius fucking IGL who just happens to have never been anywhere near fucking tier 1 Pro CS, but somehow they understand the game on such a deep level, right? And the way you can tell they can't is because their eye test for IGLs, if the IGL doesn't win, is terrible. Like, they were all telling me, no joke, everyone was out on Alexi B after OG. They were like, well, look at OG though, and I was like, who's he fucking working with? Dude, his best players are like Valde, Mantu, and then Baby Flames. Like, What, is he supposed to win the tournament with that? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, in that scenario, I always judge IGLs relative to the pieces they have, like I said with Alex earlier. Like, if you're Nico and you have the superstar team, yeah, you're supposed to just frag out and win the tournament. If you're an IGL, it's more like how good were your players. If you don't have the stars, it's maybe in 8th place is amazing for you. In OG, I actually often thought they overperformed. If you look at some of the pieces they had, like the times they were like number 5 or number 6 in the rankings, you were like, how? How did they even do it? I don't even remember them winning anything.
Just to throw back to some of the in-game leader stuff, right? During IEM for the final when they were playing against FaZe on Inferno, I noticed as well, even though none of the teams really got a lot of rounds on the T side in general, like there are so many rounds that you actually end up in like 2v2s with the bomb down and be like they actually get so close. And from an in-game leader point of view, like obviously you want to win more of those rounds in general, like you want to win the afterplant or whatever, but it's hard to say that strategy didn't work. Like you got you got where you needed to go, right? But obviously, if you're someone who's just looking at the numbers overall, and you say, "Oh, you guys just lost 6 rounds in a row," that's some real bad in-game leadership. It's like, no, there doesn't have to be that at all. It could easily be that you got basically like 80% in like 90% of the way there, and yeah, you're playing against FaZe, and they have some crazy players too, so they win some of those 2v3s or 2v2s or whatever. But like, from a leadership point of view, like and I noticed this as well, they were making like a lot of the same calls over and over again, but they were working. So like the problem is if you have a call that you make in like, let's say round 5 and you basically get what you want, like you get the B bomb side, you get the bomb down, you're in roughly like a 3-on-3, 2-on-2 situation, like that's all lined up really well. Now, if you do it again, you could say, well, you're just doing the same thing. It didn't work last time. Why are you trying it again? Well, the problem is, if you switch it and say, actually, let's do like a split to B through CT spawn, or like, let's try and do something else. Like, you have no data on how that works at all. Like, for all you know, that could be like a 0% call. You don't even get anywhere near like close enough. So like, I think people's way to evaluate these things is just like really, really off when it comes to like what the in-game leaders are doing sometimes. I thought it was super impressive as well. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the basic premise for like Bill Walsh's coaching book, The Score Takes Care of Itself. You do as much as you can to get yourself to, that 1 point, the 2, like you're saying, the 2v2 post plan. And then at that point, it's not up to Alexi B. It's up to the players in that situation that were put in there to win it. Yeah.
I would even say I could compare it. This is a little bit scoffed because, to be fair, the quarterback in the NFL is sometimes also considered the most skilled player. So maybe that would be the star in CSGO. But if we just take it for a second that the quarterback runs the offense, so in that case, it's a bit like an in-game leader in CS. There are classic examples. You can go look at these where the quarterback might make a load of amazing throws, and for real, the receiver just drops the ball. Now, in that scenario, as long as it wasn't like too hard a throw and like an impossible, if he really threw it like on the money and the guy just dropped it, like at the end of the day, he might have done his job that day totally well, but the score might look like he was shit. So that's why I always think, I agree with you totally, Anders, because I used to have a similar argument where in some of the MSL teams where he had like borderline not enough talent. Like I've seen him have Mirage games where he had like 9 post plants on T side and lost the map, and then fans are going, typical MSL, he sucks. It's like, he doesn't take over their keyboard and play the post plant as well. Like, as long as these aren't like 1v5 post plants, like he's done his job. He's got him in the fucking bomb site. Like, what more do you want? Like, he's nailed it, mate.
That's actually something even more to go into. How good Alex was calling at EPL. The amount of post plants they lost with man advantages was unreal, that they were winning games, because just the quality of players wasn't that high, or they weren't synchronized on that level of the game. But the game plan, the first 50 seconds of a round, that was all great. It's what happened in the last 10 seconds of a round that screwed them over more times than not.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.